And sticking with the post-apocalypse now, let's head back to the wasteland, man. The wasteland of Australia, to be precise, right?
Right.
So this is going to be a special review here, right? So it's going to be a retrospect review of Fury Road, or Mad Max, of course, and an actual review of Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, right? So two things. One, I'm not going to stay too long on the retrospect aspect of it.
No.
It's just basically about, if it still holds up and, what worked and kind of what doesn't, right? But I feel like I have to talk about this show here before I jump into Furiosa because, they just work in tandem, right? In really remarkable ways, right? Which we'll, explore hopefully with this, right? And secondly, with Furiosa, though, we will keep things as spoiler-free as possible, but as far there will be just minor spoilers, but those is just basically two characters that I want to address. Just two characters and their place in this in Furiosa that I feel adds so much to that film itself and the story that's being told, right? So, just to kick things off, right? Mad Max Fury Road, right? Or I should say before that, right? Mad Max itself, right? Just talking quick, very beginning, right? Yeah. I was introduced to that series through a little film called The Road Warrior, right? I saw this in, I believe it was either Sci-Fi or USC, right? And I thought that shit was amazing, right? Really enjoyed it, right? But it was just one of those things that you just kind of saw and it's like, oh, that's cool, and you see how it influenced, other shows set in the post-apocalypse and, desert stuff and guys on bikes and all that kind of stuff, right? You see the influence there, right? But I didn't really appreciate the series itself, or just the original trilogy itself, until I saw the first film, right? And you just see just the not so much a dip in quality, but you just see just how different and similar those films are. And I have to bring this up here too because I feel this is exactly what George Miller did with Fury Road and Furiosa here, right? So with Mad Max now, it just played out like this revenge film, right? Like just literally because it came out in 1979, right? It literally felt like one of those revenge movies that were big back in the 70s, right? Back in with exploitation cinema, with the the popularity of that in the 70s and whatnot, right? It felt like it was tapping into that nature, right? But it was just in Australia with Australian actors and whatnot. And it was in this post-apocalyptic future. And it was just in a place where it was a lot of desert and a lot of roads and just a bunch of people on cars and bikes who literally just, their job is just basically to chase after each other, run each other off the road, and just people just dying in spectacular car crashes and whatnot, right? And it just made for this sort of raw dread, this raw visceral revenge film dread to the point that at the very end of the film, man, the end of the film is iconic. You could kind of forget about everything else, but I think the show itself is really decent for what it is, right? But the ending is what really stands out, right? Where that guy who is trapped in the car there, and Max just gives him that saw as look, you could saw your leg off for this, or you could stay there and just wait for this, for this car to blow up, and
bro, even I saw a prequel, yes.
Literally prequel, and that was it, right? And then of course just the end with him with that 1,000 yards, 1,000 mile, is it 1,000 mile or 1,000 yards stare? 1,000 yards stare, right? Just Mel Gibson just staring into the camera, just I go on, I just don't care. I lost my wife, I lost my baby son here. I'm done, right? So seeing that now and then going into Road Warrior is it makes sense. This guy is just detached from the world, and the world itself is kind of detached from just reality itself. So it's just a bunch of madmen just driving around doing all this kind of stuff, right? So when he's put in this position where he has to save this community from these marauders, I totally understand why he's nah, I don't want to help you all like this. Here for the gasoline, you know what I mean? I just here for this, right? But eventually he just kind of comes help them out, and then I just love and they set this up very well in this film, and you see it reverberate in other films, right? The idea of the narrator, the reliable narrator, the orator, someone who's I know the warrior Max and what he did and blah blah blah, and the time that he came from, right? Just that last line, what it is, I'll remember him only my memories or whatever it is. That stood out to me so much, right? Just how it ends, and especially that music that ends it. Oof, love that, right? But as a sequel, one of the best ever made. George Miller stepped his game up with that, though. He made a legit action film out of this, right? While the last one was action, but it was more a sort of this thriller, you know what I mean, just kind of boring a lot from like car films, like whether it's like Death Race 2000, like it was drawn from that too, right? But like Road Warrior is like a legit action film, right? That final set piece though with the with the chase and whatnot though is white
Yes.
knuckle edgy seat stuff, and then well of course the music by totally works, right? Love that film. To me it is the best out of that original trilogy, right? Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, however, I don't love it.
Dial back in the rating.
Yeah, but the problem with it though is two things. One, it felt like two films stuck together. It's like, okay, you want to do the Mad Max story again, you want to show me this, and yes, we had the late great, Tina Turner, and a great song from it too, from her too. Great song, right?
A couple of great songs, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of great songs, right? But when you pair it now with the kids, and it's like, oh, Captain Walker, it's like, no, like and the first red flag was PG-13. Like, no, this is supposed to be R. It's supposed to be like gritty, you know what I mean, rugged, not cutesy and whatnot. Like, oh, he's gonna take us to paradise, wherever the hell it was, right? So yeah, it was a letdown, right? But the reason really was studio interference, right? And that leads to this great book that I was reading right now called Blood, Sweat, and Chrome, right? Which is basically the making of Fury Road. Great book. I'm enjoying it so far, right? But what they say here is that, yes, because, just doing the preamble quickly, right? Forgive me, guys. So because of the success of Road Warrior, because, yeah, that show literally shot George Miller into the stratosphere. Yeah, Warner Brothers was like, because remember they distribute the film. They was like, yo, let me just do Thunderdome, no? And well, yeah, there's a lot of interference involved, and that's why the show came out the way it did, right? And yeah, over the years, while he was working under the Hollywood system, you know what I mean, he just dealt with a lot of shenanigans, right? Whether it's stuff like Witches of Eastwick or Babe 2, right? Which I still haven't seen, right? The point is, back in 95, someone in Warner Brothers actually pitched to George the idea of doing a Mad Max series, a TV series, right? And they were building on it too, but just obligations with films and whatnot, and just things didn't come true, right? But in the process, they came up with the idea of what would be Fury Road, right? So they had the idea early on that it was going to be this long chase scene, basically. All the ideas, Furiosa, all that stuff came up basically in the late 90s into early 2000s, right? But then COVID happened and a whole bunch of things happened. Sorry, not COVID. 9/11 happened. A whole bunch of things happened. There's a lot of like drama just went on behind the scenes. More like pre-production issues, right? So it wasn't until the 2010s that they literally decided to. They were literally able to do Fury Road, right? They had to pick a location. They couldn't really do Australia at the time, so they had to like create the vehicles and ship them to Namibia. I believe that's in Africa, South Africa, I think it is, right? So,
yes, Southern Africa.
Yeah, right. So long story short, Fury Road was literally a 20-year setup thread, right?
Yeah.
So when 2015 hit, though, I did not expect in a million years that we were going to get this show, because when it came to like Mad Max, all we was just thinking was, just how it ended, just how that trilogy ended so underwhelmingly with Thunderdome, right? And then Fury Road came and just blew everybody away. It was my favorite film of 2015, right? And for me, what really surprised me was two things, right? Where it was just the energy that went into it, though. You know what I mean? It wasn't just any action scenes. It was just any costume design. It was just any production. It was any color grading. Like, this has some of the best color grading I've seen ever, right? The sound design, Junkie XL with that music, boy, my God, though, it was so bombastic, though, but it totally works. Tom Hardy, you know what I mean? Literally being, Max and living up to really doing the role justice, right? Of course, and I should mention too, initially, they really wanted to bring back Mel Gibson, but Mel Gibson at the time was just involved in a whole lot of shit. So it was like,
yeah, he's pretty bad Max now. So
yeah, he's bad. So George is like, all right, bro, you do your thing.
Right.
Yeah,
all right,
we could, right? Yeah, right.
We're moving on.
Yeah, we're moving on, right? And then, of course, a big aspect of that show was Furiosa, who was played by Charlize Theron, right? And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
fun fact, actually, I think it's one of the co-writers of this. Well, he made sure to get like a woman on board, right? To work on the script as well too, because yes, there is a strong feminist team here in this, right?
Right.
And it didn't feel heavy-handed. It felt like it needed to be in this world, right? You know, in this world that's so rugged and brutal. Yeah, you know, you
Right.
have this woman who's just like, you know what? I'm thinking about the next generation. So if it's just about taking a bunch of sex slaves and just smuggling them out of under the guise of this really weirdo guy, you know what I mean, who's all about hoarding water and keeping breast milk and all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm gonna do, right? And it just really brought a lot of heart to the film as well, right? So yes, you know what I mean, it was a huge smash. What I did not expect in a million years was in 2016 when it got nominated for a ton of awards. When that thing got nominated for Best Picture, I was like, well, what? But like all the technical stuff, I was like, yes. And when they were winning, I was like, yes. But Best Picture, I was like, really? No? Like, really? No? You know what I mean? It was like
No,
that, right?
I wanted it. I knew it wasn't going to happen. That was the year I started watching the Oscars specifically
Right.
because I was like, they got it. Like, are they going to do this? No. But am I going to be here in case they do? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's just two more points and then I'll wrap up, right? So
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, that show just for me, why I love this film so much, right? Is that it was George Miller, 70 years old, a guy that you've associated with in the 90s and 2000s as, oh, it's Babe and it's Happy Feet, right?
Happy Feet, yeah.
Coming back and saying, look, I am 70, Dread. When it comes to action films, why y'all not bringing up my name into the discourse? Y'all need to be bringing it up. You know, you will not have you Fast and Furious would not have existed if it wasn't for me. You know, he came, raised the bar at a height, and after that, everybody else was like, all right, okay, that's the bar, okay. I always make this joke, right? I feel Chad Stahelski, right? Who came in with John Wick Chapter 2 in 2016. Probably saw Furiosa, like, all right, that's the bar, okay. And look at how great John Wick 2, 3, and 4 were. You know what I mean? It was like that. It was like the bar was set. You could not, you had to step things up. You had to. Even in Marvel films, like even Civil War, I would argue, was like, all right, like the Russo brothers saw Furiosa, like, all right, that's the bar, okay. All right, okay, we will do the big fight scene with all the heroes. Okay, we'll do that in the airport. All right, we'll do that. Thank you, George, right? And that was it. It was a man who was in his early 70s who just raised the bar so high and just proven to himself, like, look, at this age, I just want to make the films I want to make. I'm just going to put my heart and soul into it, right? Even films like 3,000 Years Along, in which, CC, I was surprised that you loved as well, because I thought I was the only one in the world who saw it
That film is fantastic.
Yeah, I saw this thing theatrically. I was like, I love this, but why nobody talking about this? And when you brought it up in your best of the year, I was like, yes, somebody saw it. Yes. Yeah. So I was surprised at all hell. Well, even though we were hearing it through the grapevine, right? That we were getting Furiosa. I was like, all right, Furiosa, okay, I guess. All right. But when that first trailer dropped, I was like, all right, I need to see this.
I'm here.
And I'll close to this. I did not make the mistake that I made last time back in 2015 where I saw Fury Road in a smaller screen. Hell no. I went to IMAX for this one. I'll talk about that in my review of Furiosa, right? So as far as just Fury Road goes, just in a nutshell, fantastic film. The action sequences hold up, music holds up, you know, just the visceral energy of it though is really what makes it work, right? But I can understand people saying that it is overrated and overhyped, and you kind of have to like it because it's George Miller, and you kind of have to like it because it's Mad Max. But for me, it's just from a filmmaking perspective, it's perfect in my opinion, right? From a storytelling perspective, it's very bare bones, very straightforward. I know people debate that like, oh well, they have no story, it's just cars and blah, but. Nah, but that's the point of it, right? But that is why I love the fact that Furiosa exists, right? Like, it's almost as if Miller made Furiosa just to say, oh, you thought that Fury Road was light on story and I get it because it was light on story. No, it's Furiosa. That's why, right? And I'll stop this. That's pretty much my kind of weird preamble / review, right? Whatever. But yeah, Ricardo, you can just mention quickly your history with the Mad Max series and, if you enjoyed Fury Road as much as other people did and what you think about it now.
Right, yeah, no, I generally like the franchise. You know, I was keep thinking that I was introduced to the franchise with the first film, And because I when I kind of remember watching its entirety with my dad on Sci-Fi Channel Saturday night. But actually,
Mhm.
uh, the memory, the actually earliest memory I have of the Mad Max franchise is the third one, right? Thunderdome.
Oh wow, okay.
And here's why I remember it, because I remember a real deep cut memory just dig up, a real core memory open up sometime. And I was like, yeah, I remember somebody being kicked into a pile of shit. That's what I remember.
Yes. Yes.
That's like,
Well,
and yeah,
pick shit.
yeah, basically. That's what I remember. I like, okay, this is the first Mad Max movie I actually watched. But yeah, the franchise has always been pretty good for me. It is the template for like when we think of the post-apocalypse, even though it's like outlandish and
Yes.
whatnot and over the top. I've been recently, well, because of the Fallout TV series, I've been on a big Fallout 4 kick, getting back into that game for a while, and well, because of Fallout London coming out. So I into the post-apocalypse again, right? Just the outlandish, over-the-top nature of it, and the hilariousness of the violence, right? And why it works. And yeah. So the franchise have mostly worked for me. And yeah, I'm in the camp that kind of defends Thunderdome. Like, yes, it not anywhere near as good as the previous two, but it does its own thing and it is mostly fine. I think that was also inspiring of California Love.
Yes, it was. It was. Yeah.
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 So it's all of that. Fury Road came along, and I remember seeing that first trailer when everything looks super red. That's when they got caught up in the storm, and I was being so blown away by it. I was like, yeah, I didn't love the movie as much as other people, mostly because I found the narrative was a little lacking. Like the symbolism, I get it, but I felt that kind of logically tied together a little better, but it was still good. Like I still like it a lot, and mostly because really supposed to care about the narrative and the world building is just pure visuals and who doing what, that kind of don't really matter. Because the thing is just this one long action sequence with just a handful of slow down moments for the most part. Yeah, it is borderline a masterpiece. I love it a lot.
Yes.
It just came in to just the perfect time for film. Like, wow, George Miller really have it. He still have it after all these years. In his old age, pulling it off, nailing it. He was in the 70s at the time, 80s now.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Well,
still
was 79 to be precise? That's 79. This guy is.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's
And
wild
he's
as
making
hell.
the type of films that I want to make. Like I'm in my late 30s right now.
Right. So it's all of that, right? Is he just pull it together? Can't believe these movies still exist in the way it does. And yeah, I just absolutely thoroughly loved. I saw that in IMAX. Fury Road, right? Just really great, great story, great ideas, solid symbolism, but I really felt the narrative kind of tied together. But to me, that was the point. So it's fine. You could let that slide. And yeah, it deserved all its awards, all what it deserved, and it's truly an iconic film that really deserves its accolades. And I have no problem saying it. It is kind of like what Lord of the Rings: Return of the King was the previous decade. It was like that level of that level of craftsmanship and appreciation and just real film and what people appreciate in filmmaking. Like to pull that off. Like, yeah, loved it.
Right.
Okay.
So before we get into Furiosa now, yes, CC, your history with the Mad Max series, and yeah, your thoughts on Fury Road.
Mhm. I'm such a fan. I mean, obviously, like the post-apocalyptic genre is, like I have a big old soft spot for the post-apocalyptic genre in particular. But I feel like it's really interesting that you bring up Fallout, because I feel like there are these long periods of time where we forget how much of the almost literal vocabulary of post-apocalyptic cinema and television we owe to George Miller, right? Like the idea about like whether it's little things like, man, there sure are a lot of post-apocalyptic movies set in like a wasteland or a desert or something like that. Oh, I wonder what that's about. Oh yeah. Also, Miller with the first, and I like, for me, the first Mad Max, Road Warrior, and Fury Road are all 10 out of 10 movies. I'll get to my rating for Furiosa later. I don't want to spoil anything, but and then Thunderdome is actually pretty good. Like, it's good. It's not as good, but it's like it's not good enough that I'm like, oh, what a massive step down this has been. Like that. No. It's still pretty good. But George Miller has earned this undeniable spot as this absolutely influential master of his craft. Like the fact that he made the first Mad Max on such a low budget that he mostly paid people in beer when he ran out of like when they were running out of like production time.
Man had no control on that set at all, Joe. Like he couldn't even shut down traffic and shit like that. That wild.
Yeah.
That wild as hell, though.
And that's one of the reasons I like the first one has this very tactile feeling. It's like watching certain Sam Raimi films where you go, I can actually see how this was made, and the fact that I can makes me want to go and make something like this. And I think what's interesting about Miller is that, and this is kind of, I was talking to some friends earlier, other like film friends, and we were talking, and I was making the point that I was like, I think most of the greatest filmmakers make their greatest films in their old age. Like, I think a lot of the best films that come out of most of the great filmmakers come in their old age. So, like, Miller is like the classic case because, yes, as I was saying, I love the early Mad Max films. And I actually have a soft spot for a lot of the weirder projects he was randomly working on in between. I think we were robbed by not getting his Justice League movie.
For real.
That would have rewritten the history. Like we would not be existing in the blockbuster space that we do now if George Miller had been able to make his Justice League. Like, that best timeline over there. But then I think the thing that really shocked, like, I remember thinking about, like, the day I discovered as like a teenager that Happy Feet was made by the same guy who made Mad Max, going, oh man, well, I mean, I guess you can't you can't keep it all going forever. Like, eventually you gotta like go and make like the kids movie or whatever. But then later discovering that no, what Miller spent the decade doing was honing his craft and like essentially becoming an absolute technical master, and then coming out with Fury Road in the 2010s. And I think like I actually think Fury Road is perfectly rated. It's not underrated. It's not overrated. It is perfectly rated, right? Like, I think it's like one of my best films of the decade. It's fantastic that George Miller has stepped into the blockbuster scene and essentially dropped an atom bomb twice. Because like the first Road Warrior is massively influential for all the reasons I was saying earlier, and then Fury Road went on to also be massively influential, and like everyone was like keeping up with that. As you're saying, Matt raised the bar. It's one of those franchises I really got into when I finally got old enough. I didn't watch it when I was younger, but I got into them when I was, when I was 18 and I had the internet. So, sailing the high seas, as it were, because I just didn't have access, and watching all three of the original films and really liking all of them. And really being appreciated by the way Miller understands culture, kind of, if that makes sense. Like the way culture changes over time. Like, you really get a sense when you watch the Mad Max movies that this is recognizably our world, but like not quite. Like, you watch the Mad Max films and you kind of wonder, like, is this what someone from like the Middle Ages would feel like if they stepped into our world? Right? Like, is this like how weird and alien and different these worlds are from each other? And I really like the framing device that, like, the Mad Max films are very simple by their design. They're very simple. They're not very heavy on plot. They're very archetypical. And then the fact that every film it is revealed that the story we have just told is being told by someone from the wasteland adds this beautiful mythic oral tradition quality to it that really sells it to me. Right? Like, every film, which it also goes a long way to explain why these films are all so different from each other, right? Like, because each film is essentially being told by a different person, which adds things to it that I really, really, really like. And this is one of those franchises that like put George Miller on the map. This is why Fury Road is explicitly why I saw 1,000 Years of Longing, because I was like, whatever George Miller makes next, I'm there. Like, I am there in the front row seats. I don't care. Like, George Miller could do a Super Bowl commercial, and I will I will watch the Super Bowl just to see whatever this is. But yeah, no, I love the man. I love the Mad Max franchise. Anything that George Miller is kind of sitting out here proving that Tarantino and his like 10 film rule is full of shit. Really, like this idea that like, oh, you want to make your best films when you're young, so you don't be a old man who's out of touch,
Right.
doesn't
Well,
make like
he doesn't want to be an old cynic. That's the thing. He doesn't want to be cynical about his work. I feel
right.
that's why he's all about, okay, I got to do that number 10 and then retire and just write books. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's a lot of like this kind of whole. I don't know if it's a 90s thing or Gen X thing, but this whole, well, they don't want to be flash in the pan, burn themselves out too fast,
Right.
scandal
Well,
at both ends
the
kind of
example,
mindset.
the
I don't know.
example, the example he uses is Howard Hawks, who,
Right.
to be fair, yeah, Howard Hawks's later films when he was much older do start to feel a little tired. They start to feel a little worn. I mean, he made some great stuff later on, but his last film is Rio Lobo, a remake of Rio Bravo, and he's got John Wayne, and like there's kind of an ongoing joke in the film that John Wayne's character is feeling his age, and it's like this feels really tired. And but on the other hand, John Ford made some of his best films for the end of his life. Kurosawa's last film is a
Right.
masterpiece.
Right.
Like, and then George Miller exists. And like, again, Tarantino himself will be the first to admit that like George Miller is a consistently great filmmaker. And like, I remember listening to an interview, he was like, I wasn't going to watch it because Mel Gibson didn't come back. And then I watched it. It was really good.
Yo,
Right.
Death Proof wouldn't exist if it wasn't for George Miller.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Death Proof was so much George Miller. I know Hideo Kojima is also like not even just film and television, even in the video game space. Kojima has been really open about the influence to the point where I think George Miller even got invited to Kojima Productions to play an early round of Death Stranding, if I remember correctly.
Well, I know it has some drama over that because I personally loved it, which is the Mad Max video game that came out when that came out by 2017, I forget.
When was it?
But that,
I
I thought
always want to hear. Oh, it's great. Okay, I never played.
no,
it.
yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Like I really like it for what it was trying to do and the conceit of it. But here's the thing: apparently George Miller doesn't like it. From what I understand, and I know that he wanted Kojima to make the next game. I like, that's a good idea because Kojima is I love his video games. Same thing, like that's a filmmaker, come together just like with Del Toro. Get George Miller and Kojima to do something. No. I don't mind that at all, to be honest. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
it is. And like I feel like George Miller is going to be one of those filmmakers who just keeps releasing bangers until the day he died, and we are a better world for it, honestly.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Cece, if you don't mind, you mind telling us what Furiosa is about?
I would love to. So Furiosa is essentially George Miller's Ben-Hur, is the best way I could describe it. And I'm pulling that example. No. I'm. Let's see this thing.
I was thinking of another like 3-hour plus epic. The obvious one being, all right, I'll say it one time, Lawrence of Arabia. It's got
a bit of that. I think it was Edgar Wright who's got to see Fury Road before the rest of us, who said something to the effect of, if Fury Road is like a stripped down, if Fury Road is like a stripped down chase scene, then Furiosa is this decade spanning epic, because that's essentially the story. The story we get in Furiosa is who Furiosa is from, and I'm not going to get into details not to spoil anything, but essentially like from her origin in the Green Place to how she was taken away from that world, how she learned to survive in the wasteland, and how she came up through the wasteland, learning all these brutal lessons of survival, and essentially until she became the feared warrior that we know her to be, someone who herself can stand toe to toe with Mad Max. And that is the story. And it's a truly staggering story, because we start with Furiosa when she's very small, and then we go all the way through her life, told, I would say, rather episodically. The film leans into a more episodic structure and tells her story but also specifically, and this is where the Ben-Hur comparison comes in, specifically her relationship with the man who took everything from her. This one man, right. Dementus, played to perfection by Chris Hemsworth.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
For those of us for anyone else who've seen Bad Times at the El Royale, we know
was about to-
Hemsworth
that-
could play.
I thought-
I haven't. I
In
feel
his
I
last,
feel so bad.
his performance in this is exactly what I was thinking of. That movie exactly what I was thinking of.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And and like Hemsworth has proven that like no, he's a better actor than Marvel let him be.
Yeah.
This man has range and he's really good at villains. Because essentially the story of Furiosa is you see this man, you see Dementus, who's like the leader of like a band of essentially like roving bandits, roving warriors, motorbike like on motorbikes who travel the wasteland just trying to like they're searching for this idea of like learning for a place where they can like settle down, and they keep chasing it in all of its different forms, but like they're looking for somewhere to settle down, so of course they want something like the green place, but they never quite like that's not something like that becomes like more of a side thing, because as Dementus is looking for a land of plenty in the wasteland, he comes into direct conflict with Immortan Joe and the whole Water Town, Bullet Town, Gas Town setup that we saw in Fury Road. And we see that relationship play out. We see like the confrontation there. It builds up to a truly brilliant like third act. But all this in the background, Furiosa is managing to survive, just kind of crawling her way through, slowly but surely, just absolutely building up this endless reserve of piss and vinegar, because she knows that one day she will get to meet Dementus again, and she is going to destroy him. And I think it was Matthew earlier who talking about, or Ricardo was talking about anime eyes.
Yep.
Anya Taylor-Joy's casting as young Furiosa is perfect, because there are so many scenes. There are so many scenes where
I felt it could have either been. I felt it could even been either been her or Jenna Ortega, somebody like a big star to just get
someone
that right.
Oh, Jenna, but you see, Jenna's a little busy with a sequel. Ha ha ha!
Right.
Beetlejuice, right?
Right.
And like, there are so many brilliant scenes in this movie where you can just look into her eyes and all you see is pure hatred, and you're just damn, like just absolute. But yeah, and like if you thought that Fury Road was light on plot, I would highly recommend Furiosa, because Furiosa is, again, comparing it to something like Ben-Hur, it's a lot more intricate. There's a lot more power play elements at play. It spans a longer period of time, and you get to see all these characters age and develop. And it's a much the scale of it is much grander and bigger, and like it's not as contained to this one particular chase scene. It's like all the world building and the mythology is there, and I would argue that they're just as in depth as ever. But like, it's more like the time scale and like these power dynamics and like almost like court drama is the best way I could describe some elements of it. But yes, in a nutshell, that is Furiosa, a decade-spanning revenge epic about how a little girl stolen from her home in the Green Place became the character we know of her in Fury Road, who could stand toe-to-toe with Mad Max himself.
All right. Well, you just want to touch on why you enjoyed that film so much, and Ricardo could come afterwards, and I will close things off, and we will leave ratings for last. But yeah, why do you love Furiosa so much?
Oh man, no, Furiosa. Furiosa is fascinating because I feel like calling it a Mad Max Saga is kind of misleading, because this is Furiosa's story. Like, I feel as if Furiosa and Fury Road and the Mad Max series almost cross over with Fury Road, if that makes sense. Like, Furiosa is a character in her own right with her own very different story, because like Max's story is a lot more like stripped down. It's a lot more simple. It's a lot more episodic. It's like a Western. Like, the Mad Max films are like post-apocalyptic Westerns, where like this mysterious stranger wanders into a situation. He's just trying to move on, but he gets caught in. Furiosa is not that story. Furiosa is, again, a much more in-depth tale. And of course, Miller is on technical form here. This man is coming off the success, is coming off making 1,000 Years of Longing, a movie where he proved that he is at a phase.
Sorry, you keep saying 1,000. It's 3,000. Sorry,
3,000.
but it's 3,000.
No, my bad. Didn't want to forget 2,000 years. But no, 3,000 Years of Longing. This is a man who's proven that he is at a phase in his career where he has an absolute mastery of visuals and visual storytelling. And the idea to tell you everything about a character from a shot of them. And the idea that there's just so much effort that goes into all the little details. Like when you first meet Dementus, he wears this teddy bear. And at first you're like, huh, what a weird random detail. And then you learn that there's like a whole history to it. And then like who is not trusted to hold that teddy bear at different points in the movie actually becomes a fun little detail to like keep your eye on. So yeah, visuals are great. I was actually watching an interview with Letterboxd that George Miller did only earlier today, where he's talking about how his approach to action is to choreograph it almost like making the movie before they actually go to shoot anything. Like Miller plans his action to absolute perfection. Miller, and he's only gotten better with time. I did also mention the performances are great. Chris Hemsworth, as I said, brilliant as Dementus. Anya Taylor-Joy is perfect. She does not play Furiosa for as much of the runtime as I thought she would. I think that the film's loosely broken into 4 chapters. I think she only plays Furiosa in the last 2. I can't remember her name, but the child actress who plays her earlier in the film is also really good.
Yes, she is.
This is a film where even the side character, I thought the actress who played her mom was brilliant. I thought that all the returning people from Fury Road are great. I know they recast the guy who played Immortan Joe because the original actor sadly passed away. I didn't notice.
Oh, he did. I did not know that.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, you didn't notice. Yeah, no,
No, but I knew it was a different actor, but I didn't know the original actor, who, by the way, was the villain. Yeah, Toe Cutter.
Yeah, Toe Cutter. Very first.
Yeah, I didn't know he passed away. Wow.
Yeah. He passed away.
Also, in an absolute, another one of those, we missed the best timeline. In George Miller's aborted Justice League film, that was the actor he was going to have play Martian Manhunter.
Okay, wow.
We were robbed. We were robbed.
Oh. When one, again, Warner Brothers, right? When, Warner Brothers and George Miller, like when you do your research, it's a very complicated history, but the mere fact that he still has patience with them enough I should say, because Warner Brothers love Mad Max movies so much, is like, you know what, I'll stick around with you guys for a little bit longer, so yeah.
I think at this point in time they can't really get anyone else to make Mad Max movies. I think they've tried. I'm not sure what the right situation with Mad Max is, but I think at this point, if they want to do anything with Mad Max, it has to go through George Miller, which is smart. But no, yeah, I think for me, one of the other things that I really, really appreciated about the film, and this goes back to what I was saying about it being about like a film that spans multiple decades, is this sense of time passing, because I feel like the world of
I think it's 15 years.
It is. I think it's something like that. Yeah, because films, because they're so episodic, we generally see a small piece of what life in this world is like. This is the first time we've gotten to see a character grow up in this, right? And I think there's so many little moments where you see time pass. I remember there's a scene where a character is carrying a wig with bells on it, and they drop it and it lands on a tree, and there's this brilliant shot that shows you how much where that little tree grows out of the side of a rock into a great big there's so many moments like that. The aging makeup on Hemsworth is really good.
Right.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, they do this thing with Anya Taylor-Joy that's really clever, where they I don't know what it is. They just do this half mix of the face of her and the other actress, the young actress, over time.
Oh wow.
Yes. Well, that's just to touch on that, Ricardo, quickly. That has been cited by a lot of critics, or at least people who've been reviewing that film. And just remember it for myself, I was like, it's so seamlessly done that it's just so well done, though. That's how we transition from that actress to Anya Taylor-Joy now in that moment. That was great. Yeah.
The thing that George Miller spent decades doing in between Beyond Thunderdome and Fury Road and now Furiosa is mastering digital effects. Because yes, Mad Max always been very practical. And there's a lot of practical.
Right.
Like, it's one of those movies where when you see the behind the scenes, you do marvel at how much is practical, but you also are surprised by what isn't, if that makes sense. Like, I remember the first time I ever saw the shots in Fury Road with all the safety harnesses on, and I was actually genuinely surprised.
Right.
Like,
Well,
actually,
that's one. When I get into my review, that's the one kind of small critique of this film. Not a big,
Mhm.
but when it comes, yeah, go ahead.
But yeah. But like, yeah, you just like this period, this sense of time passing. I love the fact that it's such a completely different story from the Mad Max film. Again, Mad Max is very episodic. It's a Western. Furiosa is this much grander, almost literary in its own weird way. Like, it's this very like I found myself about not just Ben-Hur, I was thinking of the Count of Monte Cristo as well. Like, this idea of like this character who just patiently bides their time because there's that one fucker that they are going to kill. And like they're just gonna wait and bide their time, and then the moment will come. And I was also a little hesitant because like revenge films are complicated because, you know, I feel like there's this unspoken rule with writers that you can't consummate the revenge in a revenge film, right? Like you can't have the character go through all the stuff and then just kill the person. Like, it has to be more than that. And the way, and again, not spoiling this, but the way Miller delivers the revenge in this film is perfect. Like, there's not really like a good sense of like you don't really get a sense of like it's contrived or he's doing the easy thing or anything like that. It's very like it just like no, it's just absolutely perfect. But oh yeah, I'm trying to think of what else. It's just one of those movies I have absolutely no problem with. It's also a movie where, in addition to the big stars giving like great performances, also like a bunch of unknowns. Like the man, like the original Praetorian who did the Fury Road runs, that actor, never heard of him before. But my God, I love
Jack, right?
Tom Burke. That's
Tom
his
Burke,
name.
right? Yeah. He was good in this. Yeah.
All right. I'm not reading up in on Wikipedia. He was in Mank.
Right.
Really?
Thought once and kind of forgot about it afterwards. But okay, I'll look up him next time I watch that film.
I feel like I know, right? I know. Yeah. I have nothing but good things. Yeah. No, just in summary, I have nothing but good things to say about this movie. Like, it's a movie that sets itself out to exist comfortably in the same world as Mad Max, but devotes itself to a different character, and so is content to be a very different movie. I think that it complements Fury Road. Like, you can watch Fury Road as an installment in Mad Max, or you can watch it as like the culminating final chapter in the Furiosa saga, right? Like, you could just you could put it on right after Furiosa, and it feels like a nice culminating with this random Mad Max character in it. But yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about this movie. It's one of the easily one of the best films I've seen in theaters this year.
Nice. Ricardo, thoughts on Furiosa?
Yeah, I dug the hell out of this. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. Because I was thinking, it's probably gonna fall into the Smallville, Surf Dracula kind of thing when you're doing this kind of world building that movies like this tend to that kind of pitfall now. These kind of origin story prequels tend to fall into. I was worried about that, and no, we didn't get that at all. Why? Because they kind of trimmed the fat here with this. Right? This could have easily been like a 6-part, miniseries kind of bullshit thing, and do that, and just waste us at a time doing all this world building and so and so. And we get a little bit of that, but like it didn't really matter. Like, in terms of like what the ultimate sequences was, it's just great set pieces, tell a decent enough story, and just do that as it is. And I really glad they did that.
Well, sorry, I'm now wondering if that miniseries that they wanted to do, I'm wondering if Furiosa and Fury Road was that was that series.
It could have easily, I felt it could have probably easily been that 10 years ago, right? But streaming didn't really take off as much as it is. It is now taken off. I don't know. We don't know. Whatever. But yeah, I just the main attraction was the set pieces, right? Those set pieces are great, especially that first one with the truck. That first big one, with the truck sequence and all of that, the spinning thing at the behind, and this stuff just escalating in all kind of interesting ways, and they just make it really work. Just great, filmmaking and craftsmanship with use of montage and time lapse and all that kind of stuff. It comes together really, really well. And Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth are really good in this. They're mostly with their facial and emotional acting. As I say, Joy nails it with the anime eyes. Hemsworth is funny, and why he works is that he's threatening in a more sneaky way. Like, and he's more comparable to like the Joker, where when it comes to the actual raw physicality of it, you're not that afraid of him. But because he's so sneaky and subversive, that's where he's dangerous. Like, that is great part with the sniper and a rocket launcher. That's all you need to do. Great scene. Great, like how you immediately get how this dude think and approach problems. Stuff like that, right? And yeah, I just really, really like that they just didn't worry about just that too much on the prequel stuff with it. Given how Mad Max doesn't really care about the continuity. Remember, like how Mad Max is told, it's told like more folk campfire kind of stories kind of thing.
Yes.
They have a lot of direct continuity to Fury Road, but that's not a big deal here. Well, especially when they do the ending. They do something at the ending. I was like, all right, they lean into that. That's smart. That's actually the smart thing, especially that last shot, which is so bizarre and hilarious at the same time.
I know, right? I still that image has been burnt into my
mind.
It's not even a full day. It's not even it's actually a full day since I saw the film, and that image is burnt.
And it's so weird and fucked up, but it made perfect sense in what they did there. Like, that makes perfect sense given the nature of these stories and what they're supposed to be. At least how most people understand, how I understand them, at least, right? And I just thoroughly love them. Yeah, CC, you mentioned Bad Times at El Royale. Yeah, it's probably my favorite performance by Hemsworth since that film. It's just his just being so that mix of silliness but dangerousness. It's balanced really well, and why it works, and him as a figure in this world now, and him being ambitious but it not really working out for him, and how that plays out. He's a surprisingly more complex figure than you would have given him credit for, especially what I was expecting in the trailers. And yeah, overall, I just didn't expect it to. I just didn't expect to enjoy myself as much as I did, right? I went in with somewhat low expectations, thinking, as a prequel, George Miller, you're really doing the prequel thing? Really? You're doing that? All right, let me give it a shot. And yeah, it just ended up just being a ton of fun, and for what it was trying to do, and all of these the great ornate scenarios. The world building is there. We get most of those characters from Fury Road. We see them again in a different context now, and they really make a lot of this come together and work, and just have it be genuinely funny and charming. As I said, the only downside, so it's the CG is not as seamless as what was in Fury Road. Fury Road felt more practical, and this felt a lot more polished than this. Because with a couple of shots and moments, it clearly looked like CG, especially when they see people falling off of trucks and things like, yeah, okay, that guy.
Right.
Stuff. Not small things like that. Not a big deal.
It's kind of the impossible shot problem, where you look at something and you go, oh wow, that couldn't possibly happen, and instead of being, oh wow, that couldn't possibly happen, it would be, oh that.
Right. It's how much energy you have to spend into polishing that to make that look workable, and we didn't get it. It didn't feel as polished. That's all I'll say. Whilst Fury Road felt like clean, like perfect.
Yes.
Exactly. Just the style of it, the artistry involved, not as good as it could have been, but still great. Like, at no point, there's still leagues above a bunch of movies I see this year. George Miller still bringing the heat, and I just didn't expect to enjoy it. Again, as I said, I had low expectations. I enjoyed it a lot more than I did, and yeah, this was just truly fantastic outing.
Right. So, where do I begin with this? Where do I begin with this? Right. So, okay. How about this? We're not even into the mid-year, and I've already seen 2 great films involving deserts.
Right, for real.
Yeah. Dune Part 2 and now this way. What is it about Warner Brothers and sand this year, right? We get 2 sandy big budget blockbuster movies.
Trigger and Anakin Skywalker, right?
I know, boy. Yeah, boy. Like what is going on, right? But yeah. So here's the thing, right? In terms of comparing this to Fury Road, right? For me personally, I really need to rewatch this, right? Because I know that, like, even though I was attentive from start to end, I know that there was like a few things that, or a few teams or whatnot, or symbolic stuff that I probably didn't notice that if I watch again, I'll understand, right? So, for one thing, I know a lot of people go into this expecting this to be better than Fury Road, right? And I love the fact, first off, that George Miller saying this is not meant to be better than Fury Road. This is just it is a prequel. Full stop. That's what it is, right? So this is just supposed to be the beginning of what will happen in Fury Road, right? As I said before, people probably was kind of like thinking, oh, probably will make the criticism, and I totally understand, right? Fury Road was light on story, and we praising this thing to high heaven, but where's the story, man? But this one is like, okay, this is the story, or this is the setup, if you will, and then all this is gonna kind of make sense now when you watch over, Fury Road, right? So I like that, right? But I cannot say at the moment that this is better than Fury Road, right? But here's the thing: I think that as standalone films, even though they're in the same universe, right? I think that these are both masterpieces in my opinion. They are both great in similar and different ways, right? So what makes this so brilliant to me now was the ridiculous amount of attention built on the world, though. That's the world building in this is as just to quote a term that you mentioned, CC, staggering though. I'm just there watching this like, all right, like at first I'm there like, all right, so we need to see how this set up here. We need to see the beginnings of this. We need to see the beginnings of that. But to the show's credit, it's not like, oh, we're gonna show you the histories of every single character. No. You're seeing it in the context of Furiosa and where she's at right now, right? So, slight spoiler, you see the early beginnings of the war rig, right? If you remember from Fury Road, that's what she's driving, right? And you actually see how she learns to drive it in the first place, and how she kind of, how to say, boy, how she learns a lot on the road, basically, doing that kind of stuff. So by the time that you see Fury Road now, it's like, all right, that makes sense. You don't need to stop the show. I don't need to stop and ask myself, well, how is she able to do all this stuff, blah blah blah, right? That's why this movie here exists, right? But it also works too in terms of just telling this great revenge story, right? And I was shocked that while I was watching this, right? I was like, it's almost as if almost as if Miller himself, George, was going back to his roots, right? So I was picking up on that raw revenge fueled energy that was in the first film, right? But what really surprised me though was the callbacks to the Road Warrior. At first I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if we should, if it makes sense for George to go back to that film, right? But like the more I think about it, I feel like it makes sense, right? So that leads to just this minor spoilers here, guys. Minor spoilers, right? Two characters that are in this film that I feel add so much to the film, right? I'll talk about the leads in a bit, right? But the two main characters I did not expect to see in this, right? Minor spoilers, forgive me. One was the first history man. So in the end of Fury Road, right? There's a quote that shows up, right? Something about, the wasteland, blah, 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 right? And it's quoted from the first history man. In my mind, I think to myself, oh, it's from a book or something. There's something that inspired the Fury Road, right? But no, it's actually a character now, and you see the character in this film. And he ends up becoming the orator in this, right? Because he has this encyclopedic knowledge of the world before, right? So he knows a bunch of terms and meanings and all that kind of stuff, right? But then later on, when especially in the third act, I love how he's used there. He's telling us about things that happen, right? But what I love too is that they also play the whole unreliable narrator thing about him, especially when it comes to the end, right? And that goes back to the Road Warrior and how Max was looked at as this sort of like a folk hero. Like, I remember this guy and what he did, right? But, it's the whole, all right, is this the Max from before, or how far from the first film is he here in this? We're not too sure, right? But it just kind of tells the story just straightforward to the point that you don't even have to think about how long it was between films, right? So it's like that, right? But I love the inclusion of him in this film. I thought it totally works, right? The second character that caught me by surprise here too, again, minor spoilers, guys, is the character of Praetorian Jack, right? Who is played by Tom Burke, right? And when you see him, he looks very blatantly, very specifically,
Oh
like
yeah.
like Max himself
Right.
from the Road Warrior. Like he's dressed the same
Oh, yeah.
way.
Which
has
was
the-
interesting because
Yeah.
Max himself also has a cameo. Very small little small one.
Yes,
Yeah,
he
he's a
does,
blink
right?
and you'll miss it cameo. Yeah.
Right.
Which
yeah.
But-
not to get too in my head, but the very first Mad Max established that before the world ended, Max was a member of this, like, I don't know. I've talked with my sister, and I've often talked about Mad Max, and the thing that she really likes about the first one is that rather than being truly post-apocalyptic, it's apocalyptic. You're not looking at a
Right.
world that has collapsed. You're looking at a world that is
About
collapsing.
to collapsing.
Right.
Yes.
And is in the process of going through a messy unraveling. And in that role, Mad Max is one of the last of the lawmen, which makes it kind of this like Western connection. We establish that they have uniforms and weapons and equipment that are very similar, and the kind of thing that Max will have for the rest of the series, like that kind of. And so, like, it's a stretch. It's very fan theory of me, which means I should probably start a YouTube channel. But especially when the guy at one point says to her, like, my parents were soldiers in the world before it ended, like that connection is there, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does. But I will not lie, folks. There were points where I was asking myself, is this Max, or is it a particular orator from the Road Warrior? That's all I'll see without spoiling anything. It is not him, but I was speculating while I was watching the show, is this him, right? Because the guy who, the narrator of that film says what happened to him at the end and whatnot, right? So it's clearly not him, but the way how he is in the film, very much like, Max in the Road Warrior, I was like, is this who I think it is, right? Also, there is a chase sequence that takes place, I believe, midway, that is very, very reminiscent of the Road Warrior, to the point I'm watching this is like, that's the same road? That's the same location that they filmed this? Like, I did like, they're like, really? Like, is it? But it's probably not. But I feel like it is intentionally done like that, right? And I don't think personally that, it's done for nostalgia beat. It's like, oh, remember the World Warrior, how great it was? We're just going to do this again, but with a bigger budget. I don't think so, right? But it adds to the whole unreliable narration. Like, like, is this how it really did play out and all that kind of stuff, right? But it is, like, in the context of the show, yes, it's how it played out, right? But I like that, where they're wondering if it is him, right? Even though it isn't, right? As I said, Ricardo, Max does show up, right? And if you watch closely, he does a thing that he did in Road Warrior. And when I see that, I was like, all right, George. All right, I see what you did there, George. I see what you did there, George. That was a nice little Easter egg. I love that. That was great, right? But yeah, you know what I mean? That adds so much to the world of the show here, right? Where it's not just about Furiosa and these other characters, right? Now, I know that there will be people that will probably be like, have issues with Jack being in it. Like, okay, do we need this Mad Max-esque character to be in this? But I think so, because just simply put, just from a storyteller perspective, he's the guy who kind of trains her. He kind of puts her into the field now, you know what I mean? Into the battle and how to survive on the road, and with a gun. Like, he literally gives her a sort of shotgun. I'm like, all right, yeah, I like this kind of stuff, right? So I think that this is just George kind of like, just kind of saying, yeah, it's like the Road Warrior, but not like it. So it's kind of inspired, but not really inspired by it at the same time too. So I love that, right? But back to like Furious and all that kind of stuff. Anya Taylor-Joy absolutely shines as Furiosa, right? Again, them anime eyes are just so expressive, and you just seeing that ember of heat in each of her eyeballs. Though when you see them, though, it's just like, I hold it on, but once I see the Mentos way, that's it, that's his ass, right? And there's a little story beat that I did not see coming, right? And how they express it was reminding me just visually of a montage, of a really violent montage actually, from the Road Warrior. But I think, like, just logistically, it make a lot of sense too, because, like, I was worried that, okay, is Furiosa going to take down this whole army? Because, like, Dementors have a literal army. Like, he has a huge, bike riding army in this, right? But I was asking myself, she's not gonna take down all of that, right? But no, she doesn't, and it makes sense how, right? But that leads to the third act. I'm not gonna spoil what happens there, right? But just going back to, going back to George Miller, going back to basics. I just felt that raw energy that I got from the first Mad Max film, where it's like, yeah, it's all about revenge at the end of the day, right? And just that final confrontation, as I'll say, without spoiling anything, between Furiosa and the Mentos played legit like I was just watching some kind of 70s exploitation film. I love that even with the scope, right, and how big and epic it is still gritty, dirty, dusty, nasty, griminess, Shredder. I love that. I love how unapologetically violent the movie was. There were a few moments that really startled me, Shredder. I was like, oh shit, that's where we're going, right? But I love the fact that Miller himself, and I guess it's because, he's older now, he doesn't make it too gratuitous, right? Those violent moments, they're there, but they're not just there for shock value. They're there basically, to add more fuel to this fire that's burning inside Furiosa, right? But yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy is fantastic in this. She sells the action scenes and whatnot. Surprisingly, I guess when it comes out digitally or on home media, we'll see for ourselves. But swear to God, I feel she have less lines than Tom Hardy do in Fury Road.
Right.
Like, she barely says much. It says a lot in this though, but I think that it works in the story, because she is like Max, but she has little to say, but it's all about action, right? And yeah, the action scenes, just in case you're wondering, are fan-freaking-tastic though. I know there will be the debate as, are they better than the ones in Fury Road? But no, I think that they are as great as the ones in Fury Road, right? Just so kinetic. Of course, Junkie XL coming in and just giving us a thunderous score here. Even though, for me personally, I kind of prefer the score of Fury Road, even though this one kind of borrows from it though. But it works, right? It fits what's going on as well, right? But yeah, the action scenes are fantastic. They're really spectacular. Just a lot of explosion, a lot of bullets, a lot of just a lot of like kinetic stuff, right? That being said, like Hurikado, I know people will be iffy with the use of VFX here, right? The significant use of VFX compared to what we saw in Fury, right? Like, a part of me was like, yeah, I wish we could have go back to that tactile, style like what we got in Fury, right? But with this now and the scope of it being bigger, I understand. I understand why they needed, VFX here, and I didn't mind it. It's just that I kind of wish that it kind of stuck to the, the hands-on, style of the last film, right? Also too, I could be wrong, but I feel like this, like I swear, like this movie was filmed in Australia, like it didn't look the way how it did in Namibia, even though it's set, the setting is the same place now, but it looked significantly different as well. I didn't mind that, but I felt like it was just Miller just saying, yeah, I'm going back to Australia, I'm going back to my roots here, I'm going back to that griminess that I gave with the original trilogy. That's what I'm gonna do, right? Also, just talking quickly, as far as the world building goes, I love the inclusion of Immortan Joe here. I like how he becomes a rival to the Dementors as well. And okay, so there is a blink and a miss moment when I saw that. I wanted to cheer, but because the cinephile in me, I was loving this. There's a reference to Yojimbo in this.
Okay.
To Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo. I'm not gonna say what happens, but when I saw that, I was like, all right, this is where you're getting at. Because yes, when you think about it, this is about two clans or two, gangs basically warring against each other, and we have this guy, this character in the middle who doesn't even care about either one of them, and she's just trying to make the most out of the situation. So she's kind of playing both sides for fools in a sense. She's getting what she wants from each side, even though, of course, not a spoiler here, she kind of ends up with Immortan Joe, but it's all about her reasoning, it's all about what she really wants, right? And just that shot, that reference to Yojimbo, I was like, yes, I get it. That's what it's really about, right? I just love how over the top they are, in terms of, I have more bullets than you and all that kind of stuff, and how they want to take over, Gas Town and Bullet Town and all that kind of stuff. I really do admire the fact that we see these towns themselves and not just as it were mentioned, in dialogue in the last film, right? Of course, just in closing, right? Of course, all right, two things. So for one thing, yes, right? The performance that everybody will be talking about is Chris Hemsworth, right? Yes, he is a standout in this though. And I'm gonna make a controversial statement here. To me, he is the best villain I have seen in this Mad Max series. Hands down. The best. Even better than Tina Turner, in my opinion, right? In terms of just a fleshed out villain. Again, agree to disagree. agree to disagree, right? But that's how fleshed out he is in this, right? You understand why he is just basically this marauding asshole who, has a, he's theatrical when he talks or whatnot, right? But the reasoning behind the things that he does, and it's some really like sadistic stuff that he does ever so often as well, right? But you understand in the world of Mad Max why he is the way he is, right? It's not like Immortan Joe by comparison, where it's just a guy with a mask who has an army, the war boys and all that kind of stuff, and he has power, right? So he could subjugate all these people and all that kind of stuff. Here is just this guy who just riding around and dog, like going back to just the vehicles in this, right? Man has a literal chariot in this. I just see this, I'm like, wow.
I lost
fits him.
my mind.
Yeah, that fits. It fits. And just what are the equivalent of horses? I'm like, yes, that fits him so well, right? But yeah, just the little bit of detail. Going back to what you said, Cece, about the teddy bear and whatnot, right? Why he adopts Furiosa, young Furiosa in the first place, right? Yeah, just the reasoning behind it, and yeah, why he would feel that kind of way if somebody betrays him or if somebody crosses him, right? It's very gang-like, you know what I mean? It's very, I don't want to say mafia-like, but yeah, it's very gangster-like, and I love that, it how it fits in a world like this, right? And lastly, just the storytelling in this though is so great, right? I love how again, it's fleshing out the world of the story. It's trusting the viewer to be patient with it and just see the story play out. You know what I mean? Like, yes, don't worry about, yes, we have Jack and we'll see a little cameo with Max, but don't worry, this is a Furiosa story, guys. Don't worry. And it is, right? But just the attention to detail in terms of the world and, just the stakes involved. Yeah, just really amazed me, right? But I will understand if some people feel overwhelmed by it, or not so much bored, right? Because if it's one thing I love about the show, just like Fury Road, this is not a boring movie at all. It's long. No. It's very long, right? And at times you do feel it, right? But there's little to no downtime in this though. Like everything is just treated with energy, right? Where even where it's just moments of dialogue, right? Where it's just a conversation or let's say a debate or whatever it is, right? It's just treated with so much vigor, as much vigor as I should say, as just a scene with characters going up against each other on the roads or whatnot, right? It's like that, right? But I can imagine some viewers feeling overwhelmed by this, or just like, all right, this is too much. Okay, this is too much. All right, just end the film already, or at least shorten it. Like I wouldn't be surprised, sorry, if some people feel like this is too long, or it's too much story, or oh gosh, all right, it's like too much, right? It's overkill. But when you really
I don't want to be friends with those people.
I know for sure there'll be people who will find this film to be too long, even though it is a 2.5 hour film, right? But if you think about it as a chronicle, like this feels like like the chronicles of Furiosa, not so much a Mad Max saga, but the chronicles of Furiosa, right? I was thinking this legit felt like not just like Lords of Arabia. This also felt like Conan the Barbarian, right? Where it's like it's a character young, and you see, this is why I need to go after this guy. And if you think about it, Dementus is very much like Tulsa Doom. You know what I mean? Really full of himself and just like, worship me and follow me and all that kind of stuff. Even though Immortan Joe does the whole worship me stuff, and you get a little moment where it's like, yes, worship me and do what you say. And I could be wrong, but that moment involving the war boy doing literally what Immortan says reminded me of Conan the Barbarian, right? So it's like that, right? But yeah, other than that though, if you just look at it as this epic revenge chronicle saga, if you will, yes, it totally works. I love how it feels different from Fury Road. While Fury Road just felt like this ongoing chase, action sequence, this one is like, okay, this is a character in an uncompromising, unforgiving world, and this is how this character grows to become the badass that she is, right? In Fury Road, and that's basically what it is, right? But you just have this epic detail, epic world building going on in it as well. And yeah, it just feels so different, right? To the point that I'm just seeing intertitles, I'm like, if Tarantino had the opportunity, right, to do a Mad Max film, like let me just say somebody, like he just decided out of the blue, okay, I like Furiosa so much, I want to do a story about Furiosa. It would look just like this. It would play out just like this. But because Miller just knows his way around action sequences and around filmmaking techniques and whatnot, it would not have looked or felt the way how it did. It is a George Miller film through and through. It's audacious, it's loud, it's over the top, it's just boisterous, but it took risks though in terms of just the epic scope of it, in terms of the storytelling, in terms of just the weird visuals that pop up here or there as well, right? But that's just a testament to just how great of a author, I'm gonna call him, right? That George Miller is, right? But yeah, I could talk about this movie for days, just getting into ratings here. But this is one that I really do need to see again, right? But that being said, I can't say at the moment that this is better than Fury Road, right? But I for one, I'm not gonna, I don't want to compare these two films at all, right? Because the idea is that they're supposed to complement each other. That's the point. Yes, Fury Road is up there. That's a 5 out of 5 for me. So for me at the moment, Furiosa gets a strong 4.5 out of 5. But that does not mean, I'll let you know one time, that doesn't mean that, later on this year or the years to come, this doesn't get a 5 for me. But I feel like if I just watch this again, just maybe 1 or 2 more viewings, this will get an easy 5 out of 5 for me, right? But I saw this in IMAX and I strongly recommend seeing this on the biggest screen possible. I had an absolute blast watching this film on big screen, and again, I just need to see this again. But I am not going to compare those two and say Fury Road is better, blah, blah, blah. I know that there will be people who will see that, right? That being said, though, as far as just an epic saga in the world of Mad Max, boy, yeah, this delivered the goods and more, boy. This is one of the year's best films, and I will not be surprised if this makes it to, my number one, right? But I'll close this, right? Going back to what I said about, this is a year that gave us 2 solid blockbuster movies involving deserts, right? Dude, right now it's Dune Part 2 versus Furiosa, Right now is the two of them head to head right now, And I can't say which one is going to take that number one pick. Right now, I have a feeling it's going to be Furiosa. That's just off of the sheer scope of it, right? But yeah, boy, this is easily one of the year's best films. But do not skip on Furiosa. See, Ricardo, I talked long enough. Final thoughts and rating.
Yeah, I was just happy that I got what we got. Like, this was again, just I went into a lot lower expectations, didn't expect to enjoy it as much as it did, and it just really, really worked. As I said, I really appreciated that this could have easily been like something longer and a lot more drawn out, and they just trimmed the fat on this as far as I'm concerned. They avoid the Smallville thing, where waste too much time just to give us, a little bit of crap because it's an origin story, just to say, oh, well, she's looking like this now. We get that, but it's done in a much more organic and workable way. It's not the Surf Dracula thing, right? And it just does that really well. Rating, yeah, I get it's like a 9 out of 10. I didn't expect to enjoy this as much. It is on my best of year list so far. I thoroughly dug it.
All right, CC, just one quick question before you get to your fire towards rating.
Yeah.
Have you seen Dude Part 2 as yet?
I have seen Dune Part 2, and this is going to be a hard end of year because Dune Part 2, that movie is fantastic.
Well, yeah, exactly. You see what I mean? It's Dune Part 2.
Yeah,
like a sequel and a prequel. I don't know. Which one is going to be number one?
Well, and both of them for me, and I was thinking this, like both Dune films and Fury Road and Furiosa both feel like one story told in 2 parts. So it is really difficult for me to like pick which one works better because they're both so good.
Final total rating on Furiosa.
10 out of 10. I can't. I like any problems I have.
I knew it.
Any problems I have with Furiosa are too small to take away from how much I enjoyed Furiosa. It's like none of them are important enough to really like. I noticed digital stuff as well. I also thought that Junkie XL's score could have been a little punchier in a couple places, but neither of those were quite enough that I'm sitting here like, oh man, I better knock it down a star. I was like, no, I can't. Like, this is a 10 out of 10 for me. One of the best films of the year.
Yeah, definitely. So last question before we part ways, right? Future of Mad Max. We don't know. I just saw that we could hopefully, as you say, Ricardo, we could hopefully get a Hideo Kojima created game, based on Mad Max. That would be great. But as far as just like movies, though, I don't know because. As much as I love the fact that George Miller, at 79 years old, is still putting his heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears into this, right? But I don't know if we'll get any more films out of this because I think that the Furiosa story is pretty much done. Or is it, right? And that's the question a lot of people will come out of this one with, right? Will we get more films about Furiosa, right? Will Anya Taylor-Joy get that chance to play an older version? We don't know. Or is this the last, Mad Max team film that we'll ever get, in the history of the world? We don't know. But I don't know if you guys just have anything to weigh on what you think the future of this, universe will be.
I mean, I know that Miller, when he initially announced the Furiosa prequel, also said that he wanted to make a proper another installment in the Mad Max series, which would make sense. I mean, and like he's explored this world so thoroughly with Fury Road and then Furiosa that this is like the time to make another Mad Max film with like a different narrator and a different obviously same vibe to in a lot of ways, but also like a different, but like just different enough. I obviously have the same concern of the man is not young, and I don't know how many more movies he has in him in general. I hope he has a lot. I would be very happy if he lived as long as Roger Corman did, and just kept making stuff right to the end. And I know he will continue to do stuff. Like, this man is not going to retire. This man is going to keep going until the end, like William Friedkin did. But yeah, I could see him getting one more Mad Max. I don't think any more Furiosa movies. I think he said all he has to say with this one and Fury Road. But I could see one more Mad Max movie out of the man.
Right. Ricardo, quick thoughts on where you think this franchise will go from this point on. Do we get one more film?
Yeah, I have no clue.
Or do you think we deserve one more film?
Yeah, I don't know. You see, that's the thing with the franchise. It can kind of go anywhere, given its nature. So I don't know. I really don't know where it could go or can't go. Like, I suspect we might get one more with Anya Taylor-Joy. Like, it's interesting that he did a prequel at all. That's so unusual, right? I think that's the first time they went back narrative-wise. So it's that. So yeah, it feel like they might be pivoting in that way or something like that. I don't know. The franchise is the franchise. You can do what you want to do. But George Miller's getting up in age, and so I'm not sure if they'll probably do stuff past him or not. Maybe, we don't know. But yeah, maybe one more film I could see happening going forward. All right, sure.
Right.